Hey everybody, it's Mike. So I wanted to share an answer to a question about 12-step recovery groups for codependents. Somebody specifically asked about CODA meetings. So I believe that there's multiple ways now to attend meetings. I think that there's online chat meetings, and there's obviously in-person group meetings that might be challenging to do right now, depending on where you live with the COVID-19 scenario going on. I'm sure that there are Zoom meetings that people can go to. So people are asking what it's like to go to a meeting. So it's really not that big of a deal. I mean, you'll show up to some place like they have it in places that normally 12-step groups are located, like, some kind of meeting hall, public meeting hall, maybe the basement of a church. And might be in the morning, might be, at lunchtime, it might be, early in the evening. And you just walk in the room, and sit down. And there, depending on the format of the meeting, there will be maybe some literature to be read, which explains, depending on what 12-step group you're in, basically what it is, what the purpose is, and what you're there for. And then if it's a sharing group, then people will share. Each group has a different format, but it all pretty much boils down to sharing your experience. And people share. They talk about, if they're in a relationship, what's going on in the relationship. If they're, if they're not in a relationship, they talk about, it could be anything, how they grew up, and, but it's usually they're trying to get to some kind of feeling and work through some feelings, but they'll talk about relationships and talk about their, who, just whatever it was. Codependents Anonymous is focusing on people who want to have better relationships and know that they have, for whatever reason, in the past, gotten involved in relationships that aren't fulfilling and aren't helpful. If you want help, you can, they'll usually ask if somebody's new. Are they new to the meeting, or are they new to CODA? There's no like membership. You don't sign a membership roll. You don't pay any membership dues. If you want to, the meeting will usually have to pay rent for wherever it's at. So they'll take an offering, which will, you drop $1 or $2 in the hat as it goes around, and that will pay for coffee. If there's coffee, if there's literature, and by literature I mean stuff you take home to read about what codependence is like, and what the what the program's like. There are no, in any of the 12-step programs, there's no authority. So there's no like somebody that's the president of it. There's, it's not like a church where somebody is like the prophet of it or anything like that. It's just made up of people who, just want to meet with other people who have similar issues. It is formatted on the 12 steps, which they took from Alcoholics Anonymous. And so the steps will be pretty much the same as Alcoholics Anonymous, except obviously alcohol is not the issue. And they will, you're not required to do anything. The only requirement is that you want to explore looking at your codependence. And that's it. You don't even have to identify. You don't even have to say, I'm a codependent. You don't have to buy into anything. You don't have to do anything. You can show up for as long as you want and just sit there and not say anything if that's what you want to do. If you do want help, then you can reach out and get phone numbers of people so that you can have people who will talk to you and share their experience. And ideally, the way it works is that you get what's called a sponsor, and that's just simply somebody who has more experience working the steps than you do. And a sponsor ideally is somebody who talks you through the steps and helps you to work through it. And so it's basically like free therapy. It's free group therapy. It's not exactly like group therapy, because group therapy there's interaction, and you don't want that in 12-step meetings, because people tend to throw their opinions out and all that kind of stuff. So it's a safe place, no matter what you're thinking, no matter what you're feeling. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to respond, unless I think most of the time. Sometimes people make mistakes. Here's something that's important. When it comes to 12-step groups, there's two. I think there's three big obstacles, maybe more. But the first one is the spiritual aspect. So in any of the 12-step programs, the 12 steps are suggested. There's no requirement. You're not required to do anything. There's no tests. You don't have to get baptized. None of that garbage happens. The only thing that might happen is if somebody reaches a milestone, like they've been around for, I don't know. To be honest, I don't really remember. They do that in 12-step groups having to do with chemical dependency and alcoholism and stuff like that. They'll give you little chips. So you'll get a little chip, like something like this, which says how long you've been clean or sober or whatever it is. So there might be some kind of thing like that, to congratulate somebody for X amount of time. That's it. It's just really supportive. But the spiritual aspect is that it is suggested that you be open to having a connection with some force that is not you. It can be, traditional religion like God or Jehovah or Krishna. I mean, it can be, a religious figure. It can be, just the idea of energy or, you know, the source of all life. It can be as silly as a doorknob or the sky or the ocean, electricity, electromagnetism, something that is more powerful than you. And the idea behind that is, I'll share my experience. My belief is that, your best thinking got you where you are. So the idea that you're going to fix yourself, you can imagine that. Imagine the borderline who's full blown into their mental illness, and their best thinking isn't accurate to reality. So they're not going to be able to think themselves, into healing. They're going to need outside help. They're going to need to listen to other people saying, no, when you do this, here's what actually happening, and this is why it's not helpful for you. So when you open yourself up to turning your life over to something larger than yourself, it's just something that's not in your brain, because your brain got you there. You walked into a dangerous situation, and the idea is in these 12-step groups is that you take full responsibility. So the ironic thing is that admitting that you're powerless is also the first step to taking responsibility. It's, imagine somebody who is mentally ill or, quote, insane. The first step to their recovery is to realize that they aren't seeing things accurately and they need help. So in your case, you're opening yourself up to trust, because that's a big deal for all of us, is to trust that there's something out there, even if it's just, some people use the acronym GOD, good orderly direction. Just knowing the truth, that just being aware that there's stuff that you've got blind spots. And the reason why I think that one of the reasons why I think it works is that it opens up new channels in the brain. Because if you think you need to think yourself through and you need to figure it out, then you stay stuck in whatever, mental tracks are running in your thinking process by going, okay, there are things I don't know. And I'm open to some other force, whether it be God or whether it just be electromagnetism or life force energy. How is it that life came into existence? If you're an atheist, even scientists will say, before the first you know enzymes and amino acids came together to start creating the first amoeba, there was, they'll say there was something, we can't recreate it in a lab yet. So there was something that happened that we don't understand. The Big Bang of the universe. We know what happened in the first quadrillionth, literally the first quadrillionth of a second, but before that, we don't know what happened. So we don't know what something happened that we don't understand, that isn't part of our dynamic today. You can, if you want to call that God, that's fine. If you want to just say there's just some force I don't understand, but it's not a religious being because that's created by humans, that's fine too. And by opening yourself up to something that you don't understand, but that you are comfortable with, that's the thing. That's why it's God, quote, as you understand Him, or her, or it, or them. It literally means that. So nobody's going to be going putting a Bible in your face or saying you need to go to church. There are religious people, so you might run into a religious person. My experience with Coda is that you're probably not gonna run into that. Maybe some of the other places like Alcoholics Anonymous, you're gonna find a lot more religious people because alcoholics tend to be really intense and but in, I think, places like Coda, you're not going to find that nearly as much. But nobody, if they have a religious thing, they're not going to shove it down your throat, because that's one of the main tenets of 12-step groups, is that people find their own spiritual path, and that you're not, if somebody does that, they'll be, somebody will give them a good talking to really quickly and say, listen, we don't do that here. And if you keep doing that, we're going to have to ask you not to come back. So you learn to, say, if you want, you can say, this is my thing. Here's what I do, but you're free to do whatever you want. So that's one of the first big ones, is the spiritual one. The second one is, this is really huge. Codependence, as well as all the other anonymous diseases, is, and BPD as well, is a deviation in control, meaning that you're seeking to have control. When you're chasing after the borderline, trying to get them to understand and trying to get them to love you, you are seeking to control them. And so there's an insanity there of thinking that you can control the uncontrollable. So turning your will and your life over to something greater than you, and admitting that you are powerless, actually gives you the ability to take full responsibility. That's the irony there. You have to take full responsibility. That's why you can't be a victim. If you're, in my experience, if you're going to recover, you can't say to, you can't say they did it to me, they knew what they were doing, I was manipulated, and no, and I didn't know what was coming, and they did this, and that's going to keep you in your insanity, and it's going to keep you attracting more people like that, and it's you trying to stay in control. And the ironic thing is that when you say, you know what, okay, I am powerless over my impulse to chase after destructive relationships, that opens you up to then take full responsibility. That's the irony of it. You say, I'm powerless over it, and I did it. and then it opens you up to look at the things, the drives and the feelings that you have, which you're not conscious of, which are running the show, and you're just being yanked along like a dog on a leash. But you think you're in control. That's the illusion of control. You think you're in control, and I'm going to control this, and I'm going to fix her or fix him, and I'm going to get that, and I'm going to heal myself of this, and that's what got you into the trouble in the beginning, to start with. So, what I talk about, the spiritual aspect, giving up control. There was a third one. Oh, one of the main um, complaints that people have if they're new and they're resisting, because they're resisting doing things that are frightening to them, like taking, giving up the feeling of giving up control, of doing this kind of work and taking responsibility and all that. And they're afraid too, understandably. But the other third resistance that I hear people talk about is the other people in the group. They're all just this and they're all that and they're really crazy. And yeah, that's the point. They're sick. They need help. That's why they're there. So if you go there looking at the insanity of the people that are there and going, see, these people are so screwed up. This is such a stupid place to be. That's like being mad at people for walking into the doctor's office because, they've got they got a broken bone. I mean, that's why they're there. There's something broken. They need fixing. They need some help. So you wouldn't go, if a guy that just got in a car accident and walked into the emergency room with a broken arm, and you walk into the hospital and you see some guy with a broken arm, you wouldn't go, oh my God, this hospital sucks. Look at that guy. He's not well at all. I'm out of here. That's it's just really kind of crazy and stupid. Yeah, that's why people are in 12-step programs. They're screwed up and they need help. And so yeah, there's going to be people who have issues, and they might be, abrasive, or they might be, who knows, and if somebody has issues and doesn't play well with others, somebody will take them aside very lovingly and say, hey, listen, here's what we do here. And there are, there's the 12 steps, which, help you to take responsibility and to heal. And then there will be some type of, probably 12 traditions, which give people boundaries in terms of their interaction within the group, which keeps people anonymous, by the way. It keeps you anonymous, and it keeps you, free. So, the thing is, people want to know what it's like. You won't know until you go. Just go. I mean, if you don't want to show up in person, go to one of the Zoom meetings. I'm sure it's easy to find. There might not be codependent anonymous meetings in your area. You can go to an online meeting. If you don't want to go to Codependents Anonymous, you can go to Al-Anon. Al-Anon, there's probably more Al-Anon than Coda, but Coda's pretty much everywhere. So that would be my suggestion. So those are, people are asking what are the 12 steps like? So, or what are the Coda meetings like? So again, my three-pronged approach, which works for me, I didn't make it up. It works for, everybody that I know that has recovery has worked this three-pronged approach. First one is therapy. Getting help from a qualified psychologist, and feel free to shop around. Like I've said in other videos, I've shopped around. I've found, I've rejected mental health professionals because I didn't feel good with them, or I didn't think they knew what they were doing, or didn't trust them, or feel comfortable, or feel a connection, or whatever. So, first thing is to get professional help. Second thing is to go to 12-step program for codependents, which is Codependents Anonymous. Al-Anon is another one. Adult children of alcoholics. Those all are pretty much functioning in the same way, and you know, try those, or whichever one of those. And then the third one is to have a spiritual practice, and by spiritual practice, I don't mean going to church unless that's your thing. Just having meditation, doing yoga, tai chi, having something where you breathe and connect with life force energy, some kind of discipline that you do on a regular basis. Discipline is really good for the brain and the mind. It helps it process things. And one of the great things about discipline is that it helps you to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So even if, let's take the idea of meditation, maybe you're no good at that. I'm not very good at this kind of meditation I'm going to share. I do all kinds of different things, but let's take just your typical emptiness meditation where somebody just sits and breathes and then watches their thoughts. So uncomfortable thoughts and feelings will arise out of your unconscious, and the idea is just to sit and observe. It gives you objectivity, but it also allows you to learn how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. So if you have a thought that normally drives you to do an action like smoke a cigarette or get on your phone, or it's something you just a knee-jerk reaction to an uncomfortable feeling, resisting the impulse to pick up your phone or check your email or something like that and just sit there with the feeling and breathe is what's called taking contrary action. It means that you're taking an action that is different from the impulse that's driving you. So, BPD and codependence has, a lot of the same core issues. You've seen with borderlines that they have serious impulse control, that they can't, if they're untreated, they have very little discipline to stop themselves from acting on whatever impulse comes through them. So you are the same, and you'll find that you have these impulses that you act on as well. So discipline is really important, and the discipline of a spiritual practice like meditation or yoga or tai chi or something like that is really good because it allows you to learn how to take contrary action. For a codependent, the impulse to pick up the phone and call the borderline, the impulse to go online and check Facebook and see, to unblock them on your phone or whatever it is. That impulse can be really, really strong. It feels like you're going to die if you don't see if they're okay. What are they doing? Who are they with? That's an impulse. So the discipline to, when that impulse arises, instead of doing that, you call your sponsor, or you go and meditate, or you don't take that action. You do the opposite. Okay. Anyway, so those are my thoughts. I just woke up, so I'm a little tired. I went surfing yesterday, so I'm wiped out. And anyway, those are my thoughts. People have asked questions about 12-step groups, so that's my experience. And again, my recommendation is therapy, 12 steps, and some kind of spiritual path or discipline. And if you do all those regularly, disciplined, in a disciplined way, my experience is that you can not only recover, but you can be in a state of recovery like I am now. I mean, I'm just not at all negatively impacted. I share, you can see in the earlier videos that I was in a lot of pain and I was messed up. But I'm not now. If it wasn't for my decision to be part of this channel and be part of this discussion, I would have forgotten about it. Not out of denial. It's just because I healed it and I've moved on. I'm in a state of recovery. I'm still human, and I could still, something could throw me back into it. Like what happened this time was my fiance, who was my true soulmate, passed away. It created a huge hole in me, which then connected me to my innate codependent issues, and I was off and running. So things like that could happen, which is why it's great to have these resources. But I'm still doing my work, and I'm in a state in a recovered state from the codependence to borderlines. Okay, All right. I hope I've explained myself. All right, that's it. I will see you guys later.